I love making my money go a long way, and I'm sure a lot of you have the same mindset. In today's smartphone market, it's easy to go crazy and spend thousands of dollars on the newest phone with the best features and everything. But one good way to make the dollar last longer is to go for a cheaper option, but still a premium option. And in today's market, that's actually pretty easy because there are some really good options. It's not a large list, but it's a good list. In this video, I want to compare three options we have in the US, which are the OnePlus 12, S24, and Pixel 9. And I want to stack them up in different categories to see which one is probably the best option in that specific category. Let's get started with the first category, the build quality. With these three phones, there's one thing that I think sets one of them apart from the others, and that's going to be the curved screen. The curved screen is one of those things that's kind of like a love it or hate it type of feature. So, that one could really be the one that determines which one you would go with. The OnePlus 12 comes with a curved screen, and with that, generally gonna get a little bit more fragile of a screen because it's curving around the edges, but you are gonna get a closer to the edge screen experience. So there is a good and a bad to it. Other than that, the phones really do feel like premium phones. There might be some differences in materials, but none of them feel cheap. And I think that's what's important when you're paying, $800 for a phone. This next category is probably the most important one for gamers and streamers, and it's gonna be the screen quality. Not the toughness with the build quality, but just how it looks and how many pixels you're getting per square inch. So with the colors, they're all great. All the screens are bright. The OnePlus 12 is claiming 4500 nits of peak brightness, but I don't know how to really measure that. And when I look at them side by side, it seems about the same as the other two phones. So I'm not gonna say that's a big improvement. They're all just really good. Obviously, there's gonna be a difference in size because the OnePlus 12 is a large phone versus the S24 and Pixel 9 being smaller phones. So the OnePlus 12 is gonna have the 6.8-inch screen, but also has a higher pixels per inch count. It's competing with the S24 Ultra at over 500 pixels per inch, and the S24 and Pixel 9 are both over 400 pixels per inch. So there is a decent difference there, but 400 pixels per inch is actually really good, and I think most people won't even notice the difference between the 400 to 500 range. The OnePlus 12 also has an additional feature which supposedly helps the phone understand your gestures more while the screen is wet. And I tried it and it looks like it does do a bit better, but I don't think it's going to be one of those that is going to make anyone change their mind just because of it. Moving on to the software, this is one where if you have a favorite, that one could be the one you want to stick with. Basically, what I find is that Samsung software is a little snappier, and not necessarily that it opens apps faster or anything, just that the animations are a bit quicker than Pixel's, and I kind of prefer that. And, it's probably similar to OnePlus's. The other thing is that Samsung has more advanced features than OnePlus, but it's about the same as Google. And then Samsung has the most just sheer number of customizations that you can do with the software. Then it's probably OnePlus and Google. So when you look at all of them, yeah, they're all good, but Samsung tends to be like among the best in all the ones that I mentioned. So I would say that Samsung has the best software. But again, if you prefer Pixel software, that's probably gonna be the one for you. And if you like OnePlus, it's kind of hard to change. That's the one thing that really makes it a bit harder to change than the other features, really. Moving on to the camera, this is the one category that kind of suffers the most when it comes to price differences. So the flagships tend to have better camera systems, hardware, not necessarily the software all the time, but at least generally the hardware. But with these $800 phones, I think that the camera package is actually really good on all of them. So what is each phone giving up, and is there one that's actually better than the other at this price range? Let's start off with the Pixel. That one is actually giving up an entire sensor. It doesn't have a telephoto lens, so it's an ultra wide and main sensor only. However, the main sensor is the same one that's found on the Pro model, so that's actually a good thing. The next one that we're going to cover is the S24, and that one has downgraded sensors, but it does have three. It has an ultra wide that does okay, a main sensor that I think actually performs pretty well, but it's definitely not the one on the flagship. And then it has a telephoto, which is used in the flagship, but remember the S24 Ultra has 4 sensors, so it has an additional super telephoto lens on top of that. So with the S24, I would say that the main sensor produces somewhat similar photos as the flagship model, and the 3x sensor produces the same up to 5x or 4.9x before the flagship switches to the 5x sensor. And then we have the OnePlus 12, which has the best cameras that OnePlus has to offer. There's really no downgrade there from any model above it. So it has a bigger main sensor than the S24. It has the biggest ultra wide and telephoto lenses, which are going to lead to just clearer photos overall. And the software is actually really good as well. You're not really giving up much. The one thing that I did notice about the OnePlus software is that it doesn't have 4K 24 frames per second, but it has pretty much everything else. So it might not be a big deal for 99% of the people out there, but some people might want that 24 frames per second, and that could be a deal breaker. However, I did notice that when I switched to 8K, it did shoot at 24 frames per second. So that is a way around it. You're just gonna have to deal with bigger file sizes is all. Oh, and I gotta mention that the Pixel 9 is not gonna have all the same software features as the Pro versions. That's kind of how they differentiate since they have the same sensors. But the fact that you have the same sensor, I think is a big plus. So in this category, I think the OnePlus is actually the best option for cameras, just because the hardware is just that good compared to the other two phones. And the last category is going to be the battery. So because the OnePlus 12 is a large phone, it does have the biggest battery and it's going to have the best battery life. But that's not always going to be necessary to be, that good at battery. Like, it's actually at the top of my leaderboard in my full day test. I couldn't even get it to reach 20% with heavy use. So, I mean, the battery life on the OnePlus 12 is awesome. The S24 is at the bottom with battery size and actually with battery life too in my tests. It is also the smallest phone, so it makes sense that it has the smallest battery and the worst battery life. However, the battery life was actually pretty good. I mean, with a heavy day's use, it had plenty of screen on time and it finished the day with over 5% battery remaining. So it did pass my test. And then the Pixel was close to the Samsung, but it has a bigger battery. So it's just slight inefficiencies that make it just a little bit better than the S24. But either way, it finished the day with heavy use, and that's what really matters. Obviously, if you're going to be gaming, that's going to drain the battery faster. So the numbers that I put up are not for gaming. It's just for general heavy use, like 7 hours a day of screen on time type of thing, not intense use. So in this one, I mean, it's just by default, the OnePlus 12 is the best one for battery. I mean, the biggest battery, the biggest phone, it just makes sense. So once all the categories are added up, it's clear that the OnePlus 12 is the best lower price premium phone that you can get, at least in the US market. It has everything without really giving anything up, except maybe full water resistance, but I mean, that's not important for everyone. I think the biggest hurdle for many is going to be the software. So if you have a preference to one, it's going to be hard to switch to the other. But besides that, it's clear that the OnePlus 12 is the best one. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like. And if you're interested in purchasing any of the phones that I talked about in this video, I do have the links available in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.